Good morning. This is Deborah,
And Suzanne.
and our morning musing today is on Gene Key 29. I love this. It's half-heartedness to devotion, which another way to say would be wholeheartedness. And the path is commitment. All right, go. What do you
Yeah,
have to say?
I would know nothing about that. It's actually, it shows up in my profile as my radiance, which is interesting because most of the time I would not commit to myself per se. I would commit to lots of other things or not commit, I should say. Um, and when I think about this key and like really study it, it's really where are we placing our energies? Where a lot of times people go through life and they're not even really living it.
Yeah,
Like they going either going through the motions or set up on expectations of what other people expect of them.
right.
And they're not really fully embodying and being in their body and making choices that moves them.
Yes.
It's more of reactionary, like they're ping pong.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
externally motivated versus that intrinsic internal, GPS guidance system. Um, I found I really liked some of the way it was worded when I listened to the Pulse recording. It was like I think I didn't put it together how half-heartedly we all walk through life, how half-heartedly we go on autopilot and just go through the routines because this is our habit and this is the way we've already always done it. And I think the other piece that was huge for me is very often when we commit to a person, an initiative, a passion of ours, we tend to put it out there versus, okay, in this moment, I'm committing to this moment, and how do I want to live that way? And then it constantly brings us back to what's our next step? Where do I need to be? How do I need to be? How do I want to feel? But
Yeah.
it's an internal thing. And I just always saw commitment as being external. Like you're committed to your partner, you're committed to your job.
It's being committed to that moment.
Yes.
And it um it definitely relates to um as you said, that inward moment or that inward GPS and committing. I mean, you can make commitments when you're communing with someone else. It could be a 5-minute conversation, but you're fully present for it.
Yeah, and it's committed to being present. I think that
Mhm.
would be like the distillation of this.
And it doesn't
Um,
matter what you're doing, whether you're washing dishes or
Standing in the grocery line. Yeah.
exactly. You're
Driving
still,
your car. How often do we drive and we get there and we're like, how did I get here? Versus I am really being conscious now. I think that car accident I had about 5 years ago really woke me up. Is because I wasn't paying attention. I was listening to the news, and then it brought up anger, what was on the news. And as I was trying to turn off the news to make that go away, is when I took my eyes off of the brake lights in front of me and realized that person had stopped. Um, it was it was such an externally motivated moment and a wake up call to me of
yeah.
be here now, be present now.
Yeah, my husband unfortunately had a little fender bender this week while he was riding his bike, and it he actually kind of laughs about it now. But and it was he was completely protected. However, he hit a car, and it wasn't just any car. It was a Ford Focus. It was a Focus.
Oh, you gotta love it.
So it's like, okay, that's when we really are needing to stay present in every moment and go, okay, what do I need to know right this minute?
It's so funny because John's bike accident in the last month was about he hit the curb, which I'm like, "Ah." Like what are you supposed to be stopping or starting? What was that curb reminding you that you just didn't, so you so rudely had that interaction with the curb and went flying over the handlebar. He's so lucky he didn't get hurt because he
I
wasn't
know.
wearing a helmet or any of that. So
So
anyway, I think our there are no such thing as accidents, but this devotion thing, I really loved the whole idea of the wholeheartedness versus half or very little heartedness. Like I'm just doing my 50% in this relationship. Well, that's
mhm,
half heartedness.
mhm,
And years ago, I was in a relationships course, and it was about each person comes and puts 100% in because they are showing up fully, right? Not expecting you're going to fix it for me. You're going to like,
right, right, right. You don't complete me, you
oh,
know?
I hate that. Oh, that old love song stuff.
No,
So,
no. No, I
um,
show up my 100% and you show up your 100% and we make 200%.
right. And I've had this beautiful experience this week of being able to attend the Parliament of World Religions, where I was walking down hallways with, Tibetan monks and Sikhs, and there was a group of pagan leaders from around the world. I mean, Canada and Germany and England and the United States, and they're wanting to be recognized as a religion, and there were just all kinds of climate activists that were about the earth as their spirituality. I mean, it was just everybody, all the Christian faiths, everybody was represented, yet we were all there for human dignity and human rights. We all shared that commitment. And what I found is a lot of that belief system that holds us up here, we have to drop into this space, which is what devotion to me feels like. It's more heart-based
Mhm.
because this is going to keep us spinning in our own world.
Yes. And when it's in the overcommitting or the the repressive nature, it's the hamster on the wheel.
Yeah.
Gotta do for somebody out there. Like it's an out external energy of just you don't want to let others down. You got to just keep
I felt like that
juggling.
as a mother. I always said, very often I would journal about like I'm on the hamster wheel again. I mean,
Yeah,
because my days were so filled
right,
with
right,
being for everybody else.
right.
Yeah. So what if that's the repressive? What's the other one?
So the other one is unreliable. Like they can't commit. So they're like, peace out, gotta go.
I've been that too. It's
They're
getting a
just
little hot. It's getting a little hot in here.
yeah, yeah. So the reliability aspect of it. And
So
I realized that in many times in my life, I overcommitted, like to the point where finally I remember, after I was on so many committees of non-for-profits that I remember in my early 30s, I like kind of imploded and was just like, I can't do any of this anymore because I was trying to do so much externally that I wasn't honoring
yeah,
me
yeah.
anymore.
No,
So,
we in 2003 I was consulting at a nonprofit doing HR stuff and had kids in elementary school, and we were planning to go live abroad for a year. So I needed to rent my house out and clean everything and get everything ready and get them enrolled and go through all the visa process and everything to live in Australia. Well, I'll never forget all the things I had to like write my resignation to be off of this board and off of this committee and off of this and
mm,
and it was such a freeing thing. Even though I had a boatload of stuff to get done before we left the country, I said goodbye to all these commitments. And I mean, now I know I had an excuse. I had the escape hatch of leaving physically. Now they would say, "Oh, just join us on Zoom."
well,
You
yeah.
can't do that anymore.
Well, and I realized then I also was dealing with a physical issue. It was
Ah,
manifesting in my abdomen. And so that's my creative center. It was all, there was something going on. And it was just growing, 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 whatever that was. And so just being mindful of pulling my energy back in and being able to drop in and living from a heart centered as opposed to an external, like, oh, I must do this to, you know, I don't know what it was. Like I just felt like I needed to do more. But the reality is our gifts are our gifts, and we have to follow our internal GPS. And that's the
Uh,
devotion.
yes, internal GPS. So if you were to look for some tools to help you get into this moment, what, like, to drop in, right? I mean, I use centering, I use my somatic presencing and so forth, but a lot of times I have little secret weapons that I use as well. Like earlier, you were like, I'm going to light a candle because
Mm-hmm.
that brings your focus, right? Um, Oils, and we were talking about what are the oils that would be conducive to support that devotional sense. I drank um, ceremonial cacao. I drink it in my coffee in the morning, and I set an intention to have that um, medicine, if you will, to open my heart and to be present to myself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, being committed to myself in the moment. I can do that. That feels like it makes devotion like a human 101 class, you know, like,
Right. Like,
oh,
how can, yeah.
you know, versus coming from this, like, where are we going to take this women's rights things in Iran and Afghan cultures that are like being stripped away as we speak, and we can see the seeds starting in our government to remove the rights of certain people in certain demographics in certain ways, because that control keeps everybody, you know, um, well, there's no, the freedoms are being diminished. And so where I'm at is like, that comes from such a big thing, like, how am I going to make a difference on that stage? And all
And
of a
we
sudden
each have to follow our own GPS. We can't do anything else for anyone else until we get clarity in here, in our heart space.
so dropping
And
into that presence,
yeah.
whether it's through anointing yourself with an oil that, for me, rose oil brings me right into my heart. So does, um, I'm actually drinking a rose flavored enhanced cacao in my coffee this morning, because that also drops me into my body, and it feels like I'm being devotional in my commitment to my physical self.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know any other, what, how else can we support or provide suggestions to others?
Um, I find sometimes crystals help and
Ah.
they're allies. And I just thought of the rose quartz as a good one.
Oh,
Pure love of
beautiful.
just, I also, strangely enough, I just thought of lemongrass.
Mm,
And
cleansing. Mm-hmm.
I
And
don't,
refreshing.
yeah.
That's always been one of your favorites anyway.
Yeah, it's
I
the
love it.
oil of cleansing. That's probably why.
Yeah.
But
Well, because it gets rid of a lot of that other busyness that we uh gets in the way of us dropping into here, because our brain will go, "You don't have time for that. What are you doing? You should be doing something," you know.
and when we commit, there is a level of surrender.
Yeah.
And I never really thought about it that way, but it's surrendering to something larger than ourselves. And it's not coming from here, it's coming from here.
Yeah.
And so allowing that light to come through.
Yeah. And can we love ourselves even when we're feeling whatever, like broken, like hopeless, like all those other, I part of me was so excited to be in that space where people were like, we were served a langar lunch, which is a Sikh um, contemplative practice. It's actually a spiritual practice for the Sikh community to cook and provide, serve, and clean up a beautiful meal. And it
Mm,
was completely free, and there was entertainment, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever experienced.
nourishing the soul through food.
It was so gorgeous, and you could tell they were all completely in service, and they were in their bodies, present to each person. Would you like more naan? Would you like more?
Yeah.
So I was, uh, anyway, I just, it was nothing like seeing devotion in action, um, individually and collectively. What happens when that energy comes together, and then the receptive, all of us like allowing and receiving that beautiful gift. That's part of the devotion too, right? That
Yes.
exchange,
Well,
sacred
it's being
exchange.
so embraced in that moment to experience it. It's like all of us get to experience all of these different gifts. And so being 100%, I used to say, like, you got to be present to win. It's like, it's the present.
Yeah, and you
It's a
can't,
gift.
you
Yeah.
don't get a present if you're not receptive,
Right.
right?
Right.
If
Right.
you're like so closed down and focused on the future, which I loved how that came up because I'm a big future person.
Right. Yeah.
Top
Yeah.
five strengths have futuristic and strategic in it. So let me just talk about the future.
Right.
That keeps me out of this beautiful present moment of now. So
Well,
the
yeah. And
divine moment of now. I love that.
it's that when we do that projection, then we have a certain expectation about what it's going to look like. And if it doesn't match it, the energy, that's where our life force or our energy gets pulled and goes, oh, it
And
didn't turn out
drained
that way.
and drained and dissipated. Yeah. And then it's not
Right.
as potent. It talk about energy efficiency, right? Where if we're
Right.
draining our energy towards the future. And anyway, so I what other tools would you suggest? I know you pulled cards. What were the messages you got today?
So today was about solutions,
Hmm.
interestingly. And success comes from not compromising your, being objective about it and not compromising that self and having patience and self control and like a forgiving, healing energy about it.
Yeah.
And just a funny one just about impermanence. Nothing is permanent. Nothing. Even magic markers that say that they're permanent, just add some alcohol to it and it kind of, smudges it around. So life is always changing and you can drift through those changes, whether they're good or bad. And through the hard times, you take comfort in knowing that you can leave them behind. And as you drift away from the good times, know that they can equally come back into your sphere. Impermanence is an equal opportunity,
Boy,
a
is that true.
non-entity. It's gonna We're gonna have these twists and turns. That's what gives it flavor.
Right. And that's
That's what gives
like
our
our
life
weather,
living.
right? Like our weather, our windows are open for the first time in weeks, after we had that crazy high humidity and high temps. And now it's like, but we
It was
wouldn't be
always
as
the same.
appreciative, right? If it was always the same.
Right.
So I'm
There's that.
loving, I love the impermanence of life. Uh,
And if you're feeling where you are at a crossroads and you've hit rock bottom, that's the other message today is, wow, the old way of doing things is just showing you surrender. Like the only way through is surrendering and accepting things as they are, and now you can change. And new opportunities are right here at your ready, and synchronicity is just there.
yeah.
But you have to be present to see it and
to,
win
to to get the inspiration, to receive the divine inspiration,
for the
I,
solutions.
yeah, and the
You know?
healing, right? There's healing that I always have that. I don't know where it came from. Be still and heal. And there's something about when we are still, we can receive healing. We can receive more divine love. We can receive in the moment of that what is meant to come to us. what's always around us, but that we tend to tune out. So, and then that forgiveness of, oh yeah, I just, yesterday, 20 hours out of 24, I was probably not centered in my body and you know, in committed in the moment, but can I come back? You know,
Yeah.
so I
It's
love
not
that
about
committed.
perfection. It's just
Oh, really?
the awareness of
Dang,
it.
I love perfection. That's one of mine. Um,
Me too.
and not the pretty, not the divine perfection. I want it just so. Well, I'm getting better about softening that. Um, so I have, before we close, any questions or ways that we can invite others to join us in the practice for the week, like um, how do you
How can
plan?
we create devotion in our
Yeah,
moments? Even if we're, being present by doing the mundane. I'll say that.
I
So,
love
say
that.
you are doing the stuff around the house, which you can still be present and hear messages or, you know,
I actually
get
hear them
clarity.
more, right?
Yeah,
That's why when people say when I'm driving
it's
or when
called
I'm
this
in the shower.
the space in between.
Uh-huh.
It's those pauses where you're conscious about what you're choosing next.
Yeah. Chopping up the stuff to make the salad. That's when I get a lot of my, first of all, it's feels good, and it feels in service to how I want to show up in the world, right? I love about nurturing with nurturing food. And so the other thing I want to ask is, how can we be kind to ourselves when we realize that we've been checked out in that half-hearted, very human thing that we do?
And
Like,
that's the
yeah, how do we drop
self-forgiveness.
back in
Right.
to that commitment to the now?
And how can we not judge?
Yeah.
We're human, right? So how can we not judge when we go into that space and they go, "Oh, I was there again." Okay, I see you. You were there again. All right. Let's let's have a little bit of compassion here.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do check out. And so now it's just a conscious choice of how can we remember? This is um I was saying earlier, I wanted to write a book about I choose me. And
Oh,
it's not coming from a egotistical or a um, place of self, but it is coming from a place of if I can choose myself and be so present to myself, I can create space to be there for other people in a very compassionate, energetic, efficient way.
and that is really difficult. A lot of the women I work with that are in community or in, a religious, um, vowed situation, it's very difficult sometimes to feel like I can allow myself to be selfish. I mean, because we've been trained not to be that way, to be very other focused. And this is like a reversal of that after being enculturated with, it's all about serving others. Yes, but we can't do that if we're not fully
Taking care of
committed.
the vessel and taking care of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's like when we have that impact and we know that we have a mission here, yes, we can still do the mission, but it doesn't have to denigrate us.
Yeah.
We're
And I see
here.
mothers that are totally like rattled because they're so trying to get their kids to be like, yesterday on the train there was a woman that had like six kids with her. And I think that she had another family that she was transporting the kids from one city to another, and I was just like, oh, bless your heart. But I could see that she was not taking care of this,
Mhm.
and how she was so focused, and then they were just grabby with their attention because of that. Whereas if she would have said, okay, here we're gonna play a game of being quiet for a little bit because I need that, you know and training, and they were all girls,
Mm.
training them that it's okay to take care of yourself first so that you can be with others. I think of mothers, I think of, all the caregivers in the world who forget to take care of themselves. So,
Well, and to do it before there's any kind of physical ramifications from not taking care of yourself later on.
Yeah.
I think about that.
That's when we have the wake up calls, right?
Yeah.
The accidents, the illness, the
Right.
something that goes startles us into, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So choosing ourselves moment by
Yeah.
moment, saying, okay, what does my soul, what does my heart say? What is, what do I want to choose right now? And be
And
compassionate
if,
to yourself
I
because
would
it has
love,
to start here.
yeah.
If we can't have compassion for ourselves internally and with our life, and of course, we can always look back on all of our experiences because they're all there as tools. Um,
But there
how
might be
how
something
are we
new that'll drop in
expecting?
too. Yeah.
How are we expecting to have compassion for anyone else?
Yeah.
So
And at this time we need to find new ways too. So being
there,
receptive to what other gifts and what other ways we can be devoted to ourselves.
and when I
Um,
think of solutions, I think of solutions.
oh, I
So
love that.
coming from a heart or a soul place instead
Mm.
of trying to figure something out.
So I ask anyone who's been a part of this listening this morning to please let us know in the comments what are ways that you are going to commit to self devotion. And what are ways that how can we support you? And what questions do you have? Because we would love to at least give you our ideas around it. Not that we have all the answers because we don't.
No, everyone has their own path. And so we honor that and would love to hear
Yeah,
what you found on your heart journey.
absolutely. And until our next time together, take care, everyone.
Cheers.